Hello, welcome back to By George From Page to Stage. I am Matt Ogden, and this man right here is Mr. Richard Sykes, as ever. And today, where are we today?
It's called LBT, Matt. Look at that. Lawrence Batley Theatre.
Yeah, it's product placement.
Yeah, we're in a brand new suite that they've just renovated. It used to be a cafe, didn't it?
It used to be Queenie's Cafe, and we can't remember the name of it, but it's where we are now.
Yeah.
So, big thanks to Ellie for sorting that out today, actually.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're at LBT for a reason. We're hoping to take a quick look at the developments of the set and see how that's going. We'd also like to interview a few people while we're here. So we'll see who's around at 11 o'clock on a Monday morning and see if they're willing to talk to us for the podcast. But also, we've got a big weekend behind us that we need to have a bit of a discussion about.
Someone was a rather magnificent man who basically, I think it's fair to say you are I said it on the night at Summer in the Courtyard. We're talking about Summer in the Courtyard, which was on Saturday night. As of this time of recording, it is Monday morning. And I basically said you were like the love child that Victoria Wood and Elton John never had but should have.
I feel privileged by that description. That's marvellous. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. But it was fantastic. It was because you have the fantastic quality of the piano, the great singing, you got the humour and the comedic timing and all of the fun lyrics that you write. And
it was a great fun night. Basically,
really was.
For those that weren't there, we had 2 hours of me on the stage, and I'd invited anyone from Woodhouse who wanted to come and sing the songs to come and sing. And boy, they did.
And on top of that, you just mentioned before we start filming that Nikki was straight in with... She basically just was Pauline, wasn't she?
She's incredible.
She wasn't doing a concert.
No.
She was doing a trial run 3 weeks before the show, and she was just channeling Pauline.
She meant every single word.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for me, and I think maybe even Gareth as well, we were just, this is like a deck party on a cruise ship. Yeah, let's do this. But no, for Nikki, she's just so embroiled in this role, and it's incredible to see. I was thinking earlier that I think we said in the previous podcast that this stopped being my show a while ago and it became our show. But I genuinely think it's hers now. It just is. She's owning every single thing she's doing with it.
Yeah.
She's so committed to the rehearsals. She's a real driving force. I mean, I defy you to find a better cast.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, right, is that you've mentioned, we mentioned before the fact that you've got Nikki and Naomi, and you've got some people in the cast who, this is their first time doing a big musical like this, either ever or for several years. And it's kind of nice because, you've mentioned that the whole point of the musical is basically all about Pauline trying to gain agency whilst basically holding her family together. She's the glue of the show as a character. Yeah. But also off stage, this is like a triumphant return for Northern women who are leading ladies, who have every right to be on that stage being that leading lady. And as you say, this is like a vehicle for Nikki and Pauline to showcase, I can do this.
Yeah. But beyond that, I mean, in the cast, in the general company, you've got people like Becky, and you've got Helen, and these are staggeringly good leading ladies, and we've got them all. It's wonderful to see.
In fact, Helen is not only a fantastic Lil, but she's also had to be a temporary kind of host of rehearsals.
She has.
Yeah.
We basically had a couple of weeks, as we've mentioned on the podcast, a bit of hiatus.
Yeah.
Because we missed a few Mondays because Neil was away on a cruise ship. So Helen said, no, we're going to keep rehearsing Mondays.
Oh yeah.
And so we did it in her front room. Astounding. Because I mean, we were very close to her telly. There's a song called Pump It Out, which we've talked about before, and Jess was getting too much into it, and she punched through the telly.
Oh, God, really?
Oh, yeah, no, she was fine. She wasn't wearing any rings or anything, but yeah.
I meant Helen's TV, was that all right?
Made contact, let's put it like that. But no, it's fine. All is well. But yeah, it was two staggeringly good rehearsals. You know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So at least that's a good thing, right? Is that obviously we knew at the start that there was going to be periods of downtime. We knew that there was going to be, families going on holiday. Yeah. There was going to be people having other commitments. Yeah. Things like, gigs. Summer in the Courtyard was one of them. But the fact that, the cast are so willing to carry on with rehearsing and not just have a full 2-week break, that they're actually inviting people into their own houses to be like, let's carry on. That, I think, is the biggest example of how involved everybody is and how happy everyone is to rehearse.
And it returns to that question of ownership as well. I mean, they now feel that this show is them. I'm sure some people were doing it for me at some point. Because it's been mentioned, and that is not true anymore. No, this is now their show, absolutely.
This is my podcast.
Twas ever thus.
No. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this. In fact, we're like the third to last podcast right now, something like that.
Pre-penultimate.
And like Maria said to me at Summer in the Courtyard, how she really loves driving to and from work, and if she knows she's got a 20 to 30 minute drive, she'll listen to a podcast. And quite a few people have said that, and I do the same thing. Well,
originally we said they were going to be really boring if it went well, and it did go well, and it's going.
Not the first episode. Sorry again.
It's going. I mean, the show in terms of content, it would have been far more juicy if we'd had serious problems
drama, dilemma,
and roadblocks along the way. Honestly. I mean, the only roadblock that's really happened this week is that one of the set wasn't made with one of the shutters, the flaps coming down. No. And they said, "Oh, it's not a problem. We're just going to fix it now." So there's the drama, folks.
He just went.
Aren't you glad you tuned in? But for me, it's not been about drama. This podcast. It's been about continued enthusiasm
and development.
Yeah, it just hasn't waned. It hasn't let up. And still, this weekend, we've had meetings at which, again, I expected roadblocks to come up, but people are actively pushing more and more to make this better and better. Yeah. I had a meeting with James, who's going to be basically the production designer and various. He's going to be involved in every one of the shows as well. James is a huge cog in the wheel. He's superb. And we were having discussions about, right, we're going to paint this colour and we're going to blend it in so that the central section works as a performance space. Yeah. This is completely beyond me now. That it's its own animal. It has. It's hopefully people will now stop asking me this cretin.
Is this how it should be, Rich?
And now, at the moment, a lot of people know more about this than I do, which is great. Yeah. Neil knows this show inside out now. It keeps referring to me occasionally, but it's so unnecessary. I always agree with Neil. And it's the same with Maria. Maria feels exactly the same way, that we're now starting to see that. In terms of the orchestrations, this is an ongoing thing for me. You remember we've had on the podcast before improvements to the orchestrations constantly coming out.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, at this point, we are very close to running the whole show. And once that happens, then I can release the music, because it means we don't have to have bars here and bars there. So this week is about basically tightening up and cleaning all the orchestrations, so the parts can go out to the players. And when we get to the end of this week and we've completed a full run, then they can start to be printed and sent out as well. So there's a degree
that's exciting, isn't it?
There's a degree of permanence now to the orchestra and what they're going to bring, because no one knows at this moment. Have I completely misjudged all the orchestrations? Is something wrong?
No, surely not. You've had great feedback from the musicians, right?
Yes. Yeah. But it's also been a question of belt and braces. The process has been, and this is quite technical, I've started out in a sequencer, played everything in, all the lines individually, listened to them played back and thought, oh, that sounds quite nice. And then every one of the individual performers has come in. Actually, that's not true. A lot of the performers have come in and contributed to their individual lines and said, you can also do this with this instrument.
What James gave you.
Yeah,
James. Loads for the guitar.
Tons. And the inspiration is extraordinary from these. wonderfully talented musicians. So after that, and after it went from the sequencer into the notation software, what I've now done is sent everything back from the notation software back into the sequencer, and the tracks that we used in the Courtyard concert over the weekend are all taken directly from the score. So that means it's kind of a belt and braces. If it worked out there, the likelihood is it's going to work on the stage. I mean, you were there. Did the tracks sound okay?
It sounded great.
Oh, in that case.
I mean, even just filming it on my phone, like we said before, you know, the quality of the sound, the soundtracks or the backing tracks that you were playing along to, you know, they sounded really good.
Great.
And with live musicians, it's just going to go up
now that's the leap I cannot wait for.
And that band call, Maria and I said, because obviously we've mentioned before that I don't know what happens at the end of Act 2. And so we're at that crucial stage of rehearsals where I'm kind of dipping in and out, coming to some, not going to all of them, because I don't want that spoiler, so that when I'm there for opening night, I have an authentic first-time reaction just like everyone else in the audience. But band call, I'm going to have to come along to that.
Are you?
There's no way I'm not coming to that. Because, I need to see Bianca Blazard play that violin again, because, oh my God, that was amazing. But, yeah, as soon as we get to about midway through Act 2, I'll scarp her and I'll go have some lunch or something. But, I think Maria said she was like, band call, I just know that if I'm there, the moment I hear that opening note, I'm going to have a tear rolling down my eye. And I was like, I'll just be there with a Kleenex to give it to you.
Well, I'll be conflicted at that point, because I'm sure there will be imperfections in the score. And my tendency would then be to go away and just completely...
But you need to focus there and then on
I really
George.
have to focus on George at that point. And so, because playing that character is going to be... predominantly what's in my mind. So I'm not going to be able to tinker as much as I like. I'm going to have to rely on the musicians once they've heard the piece to sort of, and particularly Kira, to make sure that the orchestrations are balanced. If anything needs to go, then it goes. That's going to be on Kira at that point.
But that'll be, I imagine that's quite a weight off your shoulders though, because you know that you've got these talented musicians and musical director there who, by that point, will know the score fairly well, especially Kira, and you can then sort of relax and concentrate on the thing that you need to concentrate on. It's
going to be constantly pulling back for me, but there is going to be a tenseness, because I've never done that. You know, I've never orchestrated so many players. So it's a 10-part orchestration. The original show that I did with Curtains was 5-part. So the brass line, I don't know what the hell that's going to sound like. I know what it sounds like in my sequencer, but it'll be so...
But it's different when a human's playing it.
And we know now. We know from sitting in on the sessions what happens when a human being interacts with this music.
It goes, actually, you could do it this way, and that's just doing it as if it had no stoppage for breath.
But adds life to it as well, and breathe, when you can hear people breathing before they play a phrase. It's just so, and it's so much more immediate. It's
tangible, isn't it?
It is, I genuinely, that will be a moment that goes, oh wow, here it is. Because it's fine to see the set.
Rich, you need to sing now. Oh yeah.
No, I'll be lost. I found myself yesterday. We had a rehearsal. We're filming this on the Monday, and so Sunday was our first
Sunday rehearsal.
Our first longer rehearsal. We have blocks of sort of 4 hours and 5 hours marked out for these rehearsals. And this Sunday, I was in a bit of a fog, because we were here at the theatre. I was talking to people about the set. We had meetings about that. Then I had a meeting about the sound. And
you're a busy man.
There were too many things going on in my head, and I now absolutely need to shut that out, because my performance as George yesterday was terrible. And my lines were going here and there, and I thought, this is out of my head at the moment. And I can't do that, because otherwise I'm going to be the worst part of my show, and I can't have that. So I have to now focus and actively take myself away from everything else, delegate, not a word I'm good at, and basically taking ownership of the character. Yeah, George is me, so I am going to have to act it. So it's going to be an odd one. Let's put it like that.
But you're enjoying it, right? I think that's the important thing, is that everyone else is
enjoying it. I
enjoying
don't know,
it.
Matt.
You don't know?
I don't know if I'm enjoying it. And I'd have this peculiar quirk. I think a lot of people actually do, is that when it's so involved in something.
Yeah.
It's like if you play rugby and you're in a scrum.
Yeah.
You're not altogether sure after about 20 seconds in the scrum which way you're pointing.
Yeah, good point.
And it feels like that. At the moment, it feels like there's everything going on. People are pushing and shoving from it in the best possible way to try and get a positive outcome.
Pulled around in all directions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know which way we're pushing.
And you don't know where the ball is.
And at the moment, I feel like I'm in a rugby scrum in that I don't know exactly where I am, and I'm just part of a machine. I now need to poke my head up and see where we are and see where I'm heading. So it's, and also when you're in that scrum, you don't know if you're enjoying it. You'll only know at the end when you get the outcome. And you can look back and say, "Oh, I really enjoyed that."
This is the weird thing, right? Is that we mentioned.
Do you find that with most shows though, or is it just me?
Well, what I was going to say was that I think if we were sat here and the casting episode was way back, like episode 9, split into 2 parts. If you haven't watched them, go back and watch them.
It's a good
or
watch.
Listen to them. But one of the biggest things we said was the fact that we couldn't find a George. And if we were sat here now, fast forwarding back to where we are to the present, and there was a different person playing George, I think you'd be in a totally different mind frame, because you'd be able to be going, oh well, there's this and this and this and this, and like you'd be able to fully concentrate just on the production, not on performance as well.
Yeah.
And I think that you just asked me if I've ever been in a situation like that. The closest I can say that I've had to that is when 4 years ago, when I went up and did Faustus at Edinburgh Fringe, and I was playing Mephistopheles, which was obviously one of the main parts. I also played the 7 Deadly Sins, and I also was co-directing it, and I was also doing all the marketing for it, and also had to help do driving and getting set and costume and all sorts of stuff. And when you're so fully absorbed in the performance and making the production a success as well, there are so many facets going on that you kind of have to have multiple hats that you put on. And as soon as you get into that rehearsal space, you have to swap hats and just focus on, right now I need to be a performer. But when you're also co-directing it, or in your case, the writer of it, you're kind of never able to take all your hats off and just have one on. And I can imagine for you right now, as soon as you're trying to perform as George, and now that you get into the point where you're going to run the whole show, if someone goes, oh, Rich, I need to ask you about this, there's going to have to be a point where you go, you're going to have to ask Neil or Kira or someone else or James or whoever, because right now I need to just be focused on George and I need to just be enjoying that experience.
Yes,
as best you can.
Yes, but exactly. I mean, when you was playing Mephistopheles, did you enjoy it?
Yeah,
Looking
I did.
Looking back, or did you know you were enjoying it at the time?
That's the question, isn't it? I think at the time, when we did a preview performance the night before we headed up to Edinburgh here at the Cellar, and we really enjoyed that. But it was also nerve-wracking because we'd never performed it in front of anyone other than like a few people who had done promo with us, and because of like co-directing it and sorting all the production side of things out, you kind of enjoy it, but you're not relaxed and you're not in it. And it was only when we got up to, say, performance 3 at Fringe where I started to kind of relax and enjoy it. And I think it'll be similar for you.
I think so. I think I'll be able to really enjoy the last few. Oh yeah, but bear in mind I'm also arranging for the performance to be videoed as well, and the videographers are coming in on the Friday of the performance.
You should delegate that.
It's impossible. So I may just enjoy the last finale of the last show, but that might be it. And if that's it, that's what I'll get. But I know I'll look back with great fondness at the experience. But at the moment, my head's too far in that scrum for me to really enjoy it. Enough of us. Let's talk to some professionals about this, shall we?
Yes,
Shall we talk to some of the production
So
team?
who are we talking to first, Rich?
Well, we've got a lot of people from LBT, and we'll introduce them to you guys as we go through.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Okay.
So, I am joined by Becky and Liv, and I believe I'm taking your podcast genities here.
You are.
Lovely jubbly. Right, so, at the LBT, what are your roles? For people who might not have seen you guys, working behind the scenes, making sure that things tick over, sorting out things like shows and budgets and all the creative stuff that
All the
goes
fun
on.
stuff.
So, introduce yourselves.
So I'm Becky, as you said, and I'm Chief Exec.
I'm Olivia, or Liv, and I am Head of Creative Programme.
And in terms of the theatre, what is the kind of aspiration with By George? What was the decision making behind co-producing this with Woodhouse Musical Theatre Company?
I think it's really exciting for us. We work really closely with the amateurs. They've been here a lot longer than either of us have, that's for sure. But normally it's a case of they'll just bring us a show that's already in the repertoire, and they're always brilliant. They always sell really well. But this was a really new opportunity for us. One, to be able to be involved in a musical that's never been on stage before, and two, to work way more closely with the amateur societies and with Woodhouse, to kind of let our team creatively flex a bit as well, so they're not kind of given a lighting plan and told please do this. They're allowed to show off a bit, which they enjoy.
Yeah, I think we've got quite a lot of, like, within our technical team and wider office team as well, there's lots of like creative heads and people that want a chance to flex those creative muscles. So for our tech team to be really involved in like the design and the set build and kind of creating this world written in By George, the pub scenes and the obviously chip shop scene, to bring those spaces alive on the stage. It's really exciting, and I think one of the other really exciting things about this is just championing northern local talent. Richard's written an amazing musical, and Lawrence Valley Theatre wanted to support that.
So how did that look at the start then? Was it a case of Richard or Woodhouse approached the theatre and went, look, we've got this musical, we know that normally we do like recognised kind of, like you said, musicals that are on the circuit, a lot of other societies do them. How did that actual process begin? Like how was that approach to you guys?
It was fairly informal, to be honest. Rich came to us and says, I've written a thing, it's taken me 20 years, and I'd really like to put it on a stage, please. And obviously we know the guys from Woodhouse really well, we know Rich really well, we're always super impressed with the quality of the work. Yeah. So we were like, I mean, obviously we don't want you to take this anywhere else, we want to do this. So then, to be honest with you, we had a really, really quick kind of three-way conversation and went, yep, we're up for it, you're up for it, you're up for it, great, let's make it happen. But it's been really lovely that it's been really easy, to be honest. I think everybody has the same values. They want the Lawrence Valley Theatre to do well, they want Woodhouse to do well, they want to do the best job that they can for Rich. So yeah, and everybody knows each other, so it's just been a really lovely kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's a chance to like solidify some of those bonds and working relationships in a like a nicer way than just saying hi in the bar after we've watched a Woodhouse show. It's a bit more like, oh, let's go into this process together and make it the best we all hope it can possibly be.
It's been really interesting for us as well, because I'm not a creative, sadly, so to be able to kind of go into rehearsal rooms and watch that process a little bit too has been really, really nice to see the other side of it. And we were there for the auditions, and you know, you see these people on stage and they always do a good job, but to be sort of a bit more involved
embedded in the
team has been really lovely. We don't get to do that very often, so it's really nice.
You mentioned about the fact that, you know, your tech team, and also everyone else in the theatre really, but especially the guys who do the backstage stuff. Obviously, they're the ones who like myself and other people from Woodhouse and other amateur societies that perform here, they're the ones that kind of we interact with the most, and we have that kind of connection to existing relationship. With them being able to be involved from day one. I know Richard's mentioned this on the podcast before, that a lot of the time what will happen when they're doing, you know, a kind of a stage production that is from a license holder, say like we did for Priscilla, you guys will be able to send out the tech team for, you know, the last few rehearsals. Maybe they'll get given a kind of a rough plan of what they have to do, and they're quite rigid a lot of the time, where you can do this, especially if it's a Disney show like Little Mermaid. It's like, you cannot do this. If you do this, the whole show is cancelled. But with this, they've been able to be involved from day one, right? In terms of building the set, designing all the lighting, plots, all the sound cues, everything has been a lot more involved and kind of. What does that mean for your teams to be able to kind of do something that, you know, doesn't really have a script in the, well, it does obviously, but it doesn't really have a set work
there's
frame.
no kind of rules and
it's the joy of doing something for the first time, isn't it? And like Becky said earlier, we didn't want Rich to take this anywhere else for the world premiere of this production. And I think they've really enjoyed just having that input and that creativity and their design ideas and adding to what is on the text. I mean, when you start building a show, you've got the script, haven't you? Then you've got the music, and then the set and the costumes and the lights. It all is the next layer of something. And as we're getting closer to the production dates now, all of those things are starting to come together, and the jigsaw puzzle is kind of getting more and more complete, and we're seeing this fuller picture, and it feels very exciting and very real.
You know, we do over 300 shows a year, but you know, the 3/4 of those are things that come to us for one night, and we get given a plan and we deliver that plan, and then it goes again. And you know, that's great, that's lovely. We have some amazing people come through our doors, but to be able to be more creatively involved, and those guys know the space inside out. They know the equipment like the back of their hand, and you know, I think sometimes they get a bit frustrated because they're like, oh, we could do that better, but we're not allowed, or you know, they can push themselves, and I think they're really, really invested in it, and I think it's nice for them to kind of have that feeling of pride about a show as well, and to be properly involved in it from the start, that rather than, like you say, a bit of a mad rush at the end to be like, oh God, get this on stage now.
What about so that's from like the technical side, and obviously you're seeing the backstage crew, you know, building the set, designing the lighting, sorting out the kind of the sound as well. From a marketing perspective, how does it work for the theatre then? Because obviously you guys normally have yourself, Olivia, who will go out and you'll be looking at shows that you could bring to the theatre and speaking to production companies and saying, right, if you want to come here and do this, and we can do this, and we can help with you know, several things. But with this, what does it actually look like from a marketing perspective internally?
So normally we'd have kind of a fairly formulaic plan of what we offer a show, and like I say, sometimes there's 300 a year, so we have to be
quite
a few.
That's almost one for every day, really.
It is. Sometimes two. But this means that, again, they can have those creative conversations, and there's a bit more back and forth. We've got a longer lead-in time, so we can do things like a podcast that normally we wouldn't even think of doing. We can work with the guys at Woodhouse who've got amazing ideas as well. So again, it's just been way more collaborative. And again, I think it's the same with Panto, isn't it? When we're able to get our teeth into something properly.
A bigger campaign, and like the video that's been out on socials and stuff, to be able to give people an insight into the rehearsal room and the process, and hear from the writer and some of the actors in the show. There's a longer time, because usually, like you say, we'll approach a company or they'll approach us and we'll say, yes, we'd love to bring your show to Huddersfield, we'd love to bring it to the Lawrence Batley Theatre. And generally they have assets that they give us, but this process we've been able to say, okay, what assets shall we create, what content shall we put out that might help sell the show,
and tell the story of it as well. So it's about the making of it as well as the just, now here's the finished product on stage. You know, it's properly about growing something from, you know, paper in front of you into a fully fledged world
it's
premiere.
Been made by people from Huddersfield and Kirklees, hasn't it? So it's good to be able to give the audience that see that an insight into the process as well.
Yeah, there's so much creativity here that we don't always get to shout about as much as we want to. So
By George is the perfect way to champion that creativity.
So in terms of what happens next, you know, like time we're recording this, we're 3 weeks away from the production. You know, what can people expect on the run up to the show, and what's going to happen during the show week from the LBT's perspective?
Sure. It's kind of all systems go now. Those things have kind of been happening in pockets, and the set is currently being built on the stage as we speak.
Yeah.
So it's about that bringing everything together, and this is the really exciting time. I think it's when it gets really hectic and you end up having kind of 12-hour days of being like, oh, does this actually work?
Yeah.
But that kind of tech dress into opening night is the most exciting time in a production. Watching everything kind of slot together, it's always a little bit trial and error. There's always a moment when you think, oh, we're going to get there, and then all of a sudden it's kind of lights on and we go. And that feeling after an opening night.
August is a little bit like that for us in general, though. It's like August is our quietest month in theory,
supposedly,
where we just before we launch that autumn-winter season, and by George is the kind of first big thing in the season, launch the season with a bang.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, you know, ticket sales are amazing. There's obviously people that want to come and see it. I'm trying to find a fish and chip van for the courtyard so that we can eat chips for a week. So that's very exciting. But yeah, all systems go. But that's the magic of theatre, I think. That's the thing I love the most, that kind of slightly stressful 2 days where all of a sudden it comes together and you go, God, it's actually happened.
We've got a show.
And then you have a lot of drinks in the bar afterwards.
Well, some people might do that. I've never done that at the LBT. No, we'll just never mention that. No, but you mentioned the fish and chip shop van, and that's some people might think, oh, okay, well, you know, that's obvious. Like, you know, a fish and chip shop musical, everyone will want fish and chips. Like, that's a great marketing tool. But it's kind of one of those things, right, where not a lot of theatres either have that courtyard space like you guys do to be able to do something like that. Obviously, you've had the summer in the courtyard gigs throughout the summer. Yeah. How many times can I say the word summer? And with this, though, is the plan kind of, you know, it's a Yorkshire fish and chip shop street food vendor, gets the opportunity to kind of get themselves out there, make some money before the show, hopefully makes people want more drinks, so they'll buy more drinks at the theatre. What's that going to look like from the audience's perspective when they arrive? It's like a 4D experience, right?
Yeah. I think we want them to come down. I think we want it to kind of smell of fish and chips. We want it to be kind of that full experience.
Yeah, it gives you an option to come and have a chippy tea before you watch the show, if you want that. Or if you're not here in time for that, fingers crossed we'll be able to get someone that stays after the show as well, because what are you going to want more than a bag of chips after watching the Chip Shop musical?
To come out of that show and not
be craving a bag of chips. I'll be wanting whatever.
That's the thing, though, right? The show is almost an advert for that fish and chip shop vendor and your bar to be like, oh, the whole time you're watching it, you've just got a fish and chip shop on one side, a bar on the other side, and the whole time your brain's probably thinking, yeah, I really fancy a pint. Ooh, some chips would be good.
Yeah, if you can go home after that and eat a salad, you're a stronger person than me.
Salad? That's one of George's lines, actually.
Quoting the show already.
I know full well that I, for one, am really looking forward to the whole experience and opening night and being there and seeing the hustle and bustle of people kind of enjoying fish and chips, and hopefully shove a camera in their face and be like, can I ask you how you're enjoying your night? But for your perspective from the LBT, is it going to be one of those things where until everyone's come out of the theatre after that first show, you're still going to be a little bit on edge thinking, oh, I hope this goes well, because this is a lot more maybe on your shoulders than other shows are, where, you know, it's their production company doing all the work, you're facilitating it. Are you guys going to be there kind of thinking, oh my God, this is real, it's happening, like,
that's a really good question. I always feel quite anxious watching a show here. I don't know why, I'm just always waiting for something to go wrong. But actually, I think I'll be less nervous than usual.
Good.
Because I know the team and how much work they've put in and how much everybody wants it to be a success. So I think by that opening night, we'll be able to just sit back and enjoy it.
And we know the cast and the team are incredibly strong. So it feels like over the next few weeks, hopefully we'll be able to nip into some rehearsals a bit more, because since the kind of casting and the read-through, we've not been in those rooms very often. Yeah. So it might be like, it'll be lovely for us to start seeing the shape of some of the numbers that we've obviously heard a few times, and see those scenes actually come to life. So then when it comes to putting it on the stage, we can just be chill and relaxed, because we know it's a brilliant show. We know that the quality is there. So I don't think we're overly terrified. It's more of like, here's the time for people to come and watch it and enjoy it and appreciate it.
Yeah, and sometimes I get nervous that an audience aren't going to enjoy it, but I have no worries about that with this show. Sometimes we'll programme something a little bit rogue and I'll think, oh, has this been an error? But I know with this...
Never! Excuse me!
You know, people want to come and it's funny and it's warm and it's lovely, and I think it's going to go down a storm.
Proper good.
That brings me nicely onto one last question that I want to ask you both individually. If you had to sum up by George the Fish and Chip Shop musical set in Yorkshire in one sentence to a prospective audience member who's yet to buy their ticket, what would you say?
It's full of belly laughs, it's really heartwarming, and you'll have a right good night.
I think it's proper Yorkshire, and it's got some really strong northern women in it.
Yes.
And chips. That's what more could you want, really?
Well, you heard it first. Come and buy your tickets and then come and buy some fish and chips and a drink at the bar. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Weren't they fantastic?
You know what? It's so refreshing to have a chat with people who work frantically behind the scenes to get productions in and out and on and up and down and all the directions you possibly could have productions being at the theatre. And I think the big thing for me that I was quite surprised to hear was Becky saying, I'm not that creative, because as the CEO of a theatre, like I find that like, and Olivia straight away said, no, like, you know, dismissed it. I think that's the thing though, right, is that sometimes when you're in one of these big higher up positions where there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, a little bit like when you're the writer and the lead performer in a show, and also, you know, having to do many things, you've got all those hats on. And we said it at the start, didn't we? And I think that hearing it from Becky, how much there is going on, that people who are, you know, coming to see the show don't really see. It's the whole reason we started doing this podcast, right?
Exactly.
Was to say from page to stage, and it's not just what the production company that are performing the show are doing. It's what the theatre are doing to facilitate that.
That's right.
And actually get it on its feet.
Yeah, it's a real coming together of a community. It's not a community project.
No.
But this really is a community of creatives coming together.
Yeah.
And if Becky doesn't think she's creative, she's wrong. She is.
You are creative.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very much so. So, no, they are such a good creative team. They were there with us at the auditions.
Yeah.
And I heard them say in the interview that they were just watching. No. They came with us to the pub. They were instrumental in the choices we made.
Yeah.
And they are part of the casting process. They should be very proud of that, because I'm very proud of the cast. So, nice.
Well, we've got an excellent cast. We've mentioned that before. Yeah. And I think that, you know, for them to say, oh, we've kind of been at some of the rehearsals, and obviously they did the promo video with yourself and Naomi and the rest of the cast who were rehearsing that day. You know, I think it's worth mentioning that for the theatre, for the Lawrence Batley Theatre, you know, this is quite a big decision to co-produce a show with an amateur society. It's not something that really happens, is it? A lot of the time, you know, a theatre will work really closely with a society to make sure that they've got everything they need. They'll give them the support from the tech, from the marketing side of things. But generally speaking, you know, they kind of leave them to their own devices. They don't get involved in the casting. They don't get involved in how the production works. You know, they won't say, oh, you can't do this with the casting. It's very much between the society and the license holder who gives them the show to decide what they do.
Yeah, there are rules. It's entrenched.
Yeah.
And so it's fantastic just to pop your head above the parapet just occasionally and go, oh yeah, we can do this, we can do this.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing. And I think that's what you're seeing that's generating enthusiasm, is the newness of it all. You know, it's a premiere.
I mean, if you go onto the LBT's website, which we will get onto in a second, but if you go onto it, you know, one of the first things tickets that you see is By George is next up. Like Olivia said, it's one of their next big shows that kind of launches their autumn schedule. Yeah. And for them, it makes loads more sense to push something that they're heavily involved in, to make sure that it sells as well as it can. And as you say, it's not a community project, but it's showcasing the creatives in the community and giving them that platform to go, you know what, this is a Yorkshire production. It's a world premiere, and as a theatre, we're really proud that we're behind this. Yeah.
And people can be part of that community. All you need to do is buy a ticket, folks. Now, ticket sales are going really, really well.
Good.
So get in there, folks, because you don't want to miss this one. And if you want to aim for a night or a day that is looking a little undersold at the moment,
why not?
The Thursday night performance, there is more choice there. So if you fancy the Thursday, or if you're coming for an afternoon matinee, Saturday matinee, that needs some tickets selling as well. The rest of the nights, you're going to have to be less choosy about where you sit, let's put it like that. But you can do all that at the website, which is www.thelbt.org.
And it's worth mentioning as well that if you are wanting to sit on the front row, or if you're scared about sitting on the front row, don't be scared about sitting on the front row. You're not going to have any chips or fish thrown at you. You're not going to be covered in any pints. But you can get your tickets from the LBT, and you can also scan this here QR code, and that will take you to our Instagram so that you'll be able to look at what's going on behind the scenes. You'll be able to head to richsykes.com, this man's website, and learn more about him and the show itself and other shows and productions that he's done or has coming up. You can also subscribe to the podcast. You can go on to Mr. Richard Sykes' YouTube channel to watch all of the previous episodes. Or if you don't want to watch it, or you're driving, like a lot of people are when they're listening to this, you can listen to it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on all the podcast streaming sites, can't you, Rich?
You can indeed, folks. And we really hope you enjoy it. As we say, there is only a few more of these left to go. Our second part of the podcast will be next week, where we'll be featuring a look at the stage and what current
a real
position that is.
behind the scenes.
Genuinely behind the scenes, and you'll be able to see what's happening with the staging. James is going to take us around that on the next podcast, so tune in for that. But from me and from this fabulous man, thanks, Matt.
No worries. Cheers, Rich.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello, my name is Richard Sykes, and I wrote By George. The show is a very personal story. It's a local story, so it's all about my childhood in Yorkshire, growing up around Yorkshire women, strong women. It's also about family, so the strong family bonds that we had around here when I was a kid as well. This musical really elevates performers of a certain age that perhaps thought they were done with musical theatre and couldn't get the leads anymore. And these incredible performers from my prime period about 20 years ago are the ones that are really elevating the piece. They are sensational. Can't wait to see them perform, and rehearsals are an absolute joy.
My name's Niovi Armitage, and I'm playing Marge in By George. She's the villain, which is really interesting to play. The reason she's important is that she learns that George has money of his own, and she's looking for husband number 6, and that would be a good fit. So she sets about to divide and conquer, which is one of her songs, to divide and conquer the leading lady, Nikki, playing Pauline, and George, and she wants to get in there and steal George off Pauline. So I haven't been on stage for 20 years, and I used to do lots of shows back in the day, and Woodhouse was one of the main societies that I played with. And then I went away to have kids and form a business. And now I'm back for this one, so really excited about the whole thing.
Musical theatre should be vibrant, it should be exciting, but it's so rare to find something that accentuates incredible female performances of a certain age and is local. I am absolutely thrilled that Woodhouse Musical Theatre Company, my company, are forming a bond with Lawrence Batley Theatre to make this happen. It's a real combination of incredible talents, and it's so nice to be a part of. I hope the audience laughs to start off with. It's a massive comedy musical. I also hope they come out finger clicking to some of the songs, because there's some very catchy numbers in there, and they're all brand new. It's amazing to see.